like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Thank you all for coming and thank you for your patience as we got started. If we could stand for a moment for a pledge of allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence, and also keep in mind our ISU family and community. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May be seated. Roll call, Dr. Golden.
Mrs. Killian,
Present.
Mrs. Lohr,
Present.
Ms. Lauer,
Present.
Dr. Powers,
Present.
Ms. Scott,
Present.
Mrs. Wise,
Present.
Mr. Irwin.
Here.
Our vision and mission. Our vision is working together with our community. We inspire our students to discover their talents and rise to their greatest potential. Our mission is building on the strengths of our diverse community. We create an engaging, comprehensive educational environment that supports the growth of lifelong learners. We move on to our consent agenda.
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion or questions from the board? All those in favor to approve our consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And any abstentions? Thank you. Next, we move to our July accounts payable docket, the Finance Committee.
I move approval of the July accounts payable docket. I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve our July accounts payable docket. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I think we saw a list of questions that the Finance Committee put to Mrs. Wilson and her department. All of those were answered, so everything appears to be in good order.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstain. Thank you. Our new business, the personnel report, professional leave request, Mr. Michael Cox.
President Killian, Superintendent Hayworth, members of the Board of Trustees, administration seeks approval of professional leave and personnel report as presented this evening.
I move to approve the personnel report, professional leave request.
I'll second that. We have a motion and a second to approve the personnel report and professional leave request. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I have a comment. I'm just letting the board know I'll be abstaining from this vote. My wife appears on the personnel report. She's taking over the newspaper at Westview High School.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and abstain.
I abstain.
Thank you to your wife for volunteering for the newspaper.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the strategic plan and student services update, Superintendent Hayworth and Dr. Tom Falkovich.
Madam President, members of the board, in February of 2020, the board approved the 2020-2025 strategic plan. Then just 1 month later, the board, the school district, the state, the nation was facing the pandemic. As we battled the pandemic, I believe we lost sight of the document that we had created. Over 18 months, over 91 community meetings. Not that the district lost sight of it, but just the pandemic captured our minds and captured our lives for quite a while. When you think about how we put that together, we had various subcommittees that met that include both school and community members. Those subcommittees included resource management, student services, curriculum and instruction, communication, and co-curricular and extracurricular activities. Coming out of that that work, there were key initiatives. The board decided to identify those centered around technology, career and college pathways, fiscal responsibility, facility, community engagement, student leadership, and early childhood education. You know, if you recall, before the pandemic, the corporation was also engaged in business education roundtables, which some people in the audience were present for those. We were also engaged in, I think we had completed 3 faith-based education roundtable meetings. I think we completed the same number of non-for-profit education roundtables. I think the board recalls, we were also doing an annual report each year. Tonight we start to get back to those type of activities. Later this fall, we will announce a schedule that leads us back to all those important roundtable discussions. We'll also be announcing the return of the parent network. But tonight we begin what is the first of several monthly reports related to the strategic plan. The report will focus on the progress of the strategic plan and speaking both to highlight where we currently are, but yet the work that still needs to be done under that plan. So to get us started tonight, Dr. Tom Milatevich will be introducing his team and highlighting the work being done under the power goals related to student support. So Dr. Milatevich.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Hayward, President Killian, members of the School Board of Trustees. Tonight I'm able to talk about the strategic plan, and as Dr. Hayward so eloquently put, sometimes you enter into a plan like we did, and as you're in the middle of the work, you forget to go back and look at the plan to see all that you accomplished. I think it's very important to look back at this plan because we can be very, very proud of what we accomplished. Not only what we accomplished, but when we accomplished it. As Dr. Hayward alluded to, we've gone through a pandemic, and I think I feel good about our school corporation that we still forged ahead with our strategic plan when we could have been singularly focused on the pandemic. But you will see tonight that we were not. So up on the screen I have the strategic plan. I want to go through the 4 points with you, and then I will talk about my department specifically in student services. The first goal was to implement the Beagle Virtual Success Academy. Kind of a funny story that I relay about the Beagle Virtual Success Academy is I believe it was Dr. Hayward's first day on the job. I walked into his office, we'd been introduced to each other, and I said to Dr. Hayward, Dr. Hayward, I hope you remember me, I'm Tom Milatevich, and I would like to start a virtual school. And I gave him the reasons why, and we talked for a little bit. I looked at him, he looked at me, he looked at me, I looked at him, and he said, so why are you still here? You should be going to start a virtual school. And off I went and started the virtual school. Dr. Hayward was a huge proponent of the virtual school and moving in that direction, so that was the easiest part about creating the virtual school, was getting the approval from Dr. Hayward. So we went about that business, and it takes a lot to start a new school. It's not an easy thing to do. You have to build the infrastructure, you have to build the policies, you have to build the procedures, you have to build the framework in order to start the virtual school. And so Dr. Mason and I set forth to start that virtual school. And to this point, we should all be very proud of what we built. Not only what we built, but the timing when we built it. The timing couldn't be better. We built it right before the pandemic hit. And we had an infrastructure in place to absorb the concerns with the pandemic. To this day, we have graduated over 100 students from the virtual school, 72 last year. That's amazing. In just a few short years to be so successful with an endeavor that we didn't know the outcome of. But getting back to the pandemic part of VBSA, at one point in time we had over 1,000 students in our virtual school. Had we not started it, had I not walked into Dr. Hayworth and Dr. Hayworth been so gracious in allowing us to start that virtual school, we would not have been prepared for that onslaught of students that wanted to go to the virtual school in the middle of the pandemic. So, with any of these goals in this strategic plan, are they finished? They are not. It's a work in progress. We have about 200 students currently in our virtual school, K through 12. We feel our elementary portion of the virtual school works extremely well. The rest of it, we work with Edmentum. That's something we are trying to really work on and change. Dr. Hayworth wants to have our own curriculum, a curriculum that we can own, a curriculum that we can use, and perhaps even entice others from the state to use our curriculum or come to our virtual school. So that's the work in progress there, part of the virtual school. But overall, it's a ringing success. And I feel very good about where we are today. At this point, I have very little to do with the virtual school other than helping place students there from time to time. That has been placed in other departments, per se. So again, great success for the Beagle Virtual School. You can see there are some measurements there, and I think some of those measurements are still coming to bear with the virtual school. I hope that it will stabilize our enrollment is the biggest goal.
May I add, Tom, that I was there when we had the first open house, the virtual school, and if my memory is correct, I think we anticipated maybe 60 or 70 students maximum that might attend or enroll, and I think it was more than double that, just that very first week.
Yeah, my goal was to have 10 people show up at the virtual school open house, and we had over 100 people show up at the virtual school open house. And thank you, I forgot all about that, but I do appreciate that memory. The second goal on the strategic plan is explore new school schedules. For almost 25 years, our high schools live with a trimester. For 25 years, we heard some good things about the trimester, and we heard some very negative things about the trimester. All along, everybody had the talk of moving back to semesters. Sometimes in a pandemic, apparently you are given time to think about things a little bit and reflect. And as we were in the middle of that, it came to be that would be part of our strategic plan, and we were able to move very, very quickly to a semester schedule that we have today. This semester schedule has a lot of benefits over the trimester, and with that, I think the number of children meeting the graduation pathways, we're only a couple of years into this, so we'll be able to measure that down the line. But to move so quickly and so decisively, it was very, very important. Usually that takes a few years to change a high school schedule. It's not easy. People are rooted in teaching certain things and certain subjects, and so changing the minds and hearts of teachers has some difficulties and some hurdles to get over. But we moved, and we moved to that new schedule, and so I feel very good about that. I think we've looked at some middle school schedules too, and we'll continue to look at those schedules as we move through this. So it's not a check mark that we put next to these goals. They're fluid more than they are static. The next goal is enhanced school safety. This is something we work very diligently in my department, student services, and our whole school corporation. It's really at the heart and soul of what we do in our school corporation. You can feel very good about what we've done. I'll highlight this later in a presentation right after this one. We're one of the few school corporations that has a school protection officer in every school. Every school. We have one at the Aquatic Center. That is a difference maker for school safety. To have somebody that is trained, and we do train our SBOs. In fact, we just had training. We had very intensive training at Top Guns, and which assisted our SBOs in some things that we really wanted to have an emphasis on. We also have camera systems in our schools. We have school safety plans. We just have a myriad of items in our school that are directed to school safety. We have policies with school safety. We have a coordinator of school safety. Kurt Brenniger is our coordinator of school safety. We have an individual that helps schedule our SBOs with John Hopper. All of these individuals make things go, make things work a little more easily, and with less burden on one person. But I feel that at this point, it's one of our strongest aspects of our strategic plan is our enhanced school safety. Again, it's a work in progress. That'll be highlighted again tonight as we forge ahead with a new endeavor in school safety. So enhancing student safety, still a fluid goal. We'll still continue to work on that. And I would have to say, just one more point on that, that if we said we were done with that, I think that would be a huge mistake. Things change. The last part of the school safety plan, of the strategic plan, is strengthen positive student intervention and supports. I am very, very fortunate to have had 2 grants come through student services. The Lilly Grant, which helped enhance school counseling, and also Project Aware, which helps with students that are struggling with mental health. And both of those grants have helped us tremendously to increase our ability to assist students and assist our employees that work in that arena. Tonight, and I'll highlight some people here tonight, but Dr. Megan Kirk is here, and she has been our Project Aware coordinator for the last 4 years. Just an amazing talent that we have along with the other people in my department. And we forge ahead and lay new ground every day with this. But just think, with just Project Aware in general, we have the ability to bring therapists to our building, to bring that therapy to the students. We're breaking down that barrier of transportation that has always existed and saying, no, we're gonna bring this individual to you. And I cannot tell you the difference that has made for our students and our community. And so again, we have work to do there. We've done a tremendous amount of work. So with the 4 goals that I displayed to you, I think that progress well made. I'll take any questions about the strategic plan before I move into my department.
How many graduation pathways are we at this point?
Oh boy, that's like my Dr. Miller. Can I phone a friend?
The report that I just saw said 26, but that was a report. Is that close? I'm phoning a friend in the audience. Mrs. Tracy.
That was a zinger.
But to that point, it's not where we want to be. When we think about the importance of college and career preparedness, I think it is reflecting upon our elementary, middle school schedules to strengthen those opportunities for students to explore pathways, whether that's, hey, I do not want to be in that pathway, which you count as a success, or it's the opportunity for us as a school system to do more opportunities off campus and create externships to where our students are using every resource that we have within our community. So I 2026, that is where we hope to hit.
I think that despite the distractions of COVID, that this represents good progress on a plan that I know, I've said this so many times, but the strategic plan was what made me want to be part of this group. And hearing these reports is very encouraging. Can't wait to see what happens in the next check-in when we're not dealing with all the intensity of COVID. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to move on to, if those are all the questions. I want to jump into my presentation about my department. I think Confucius said, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And fortunately for me, I'm in the right room because I am not the smartest person in the room when I'm with my department. And they are here tonight for the most part, and so I'm going to highlight all these smart people. So just to go through, student services has a big umbrella, and under that umbrella, many things fall. And there's just a list. I don't want to go through all of them. I don't do this by myself. I couldn't do this by myself. I wouldn't do this by myself. That's why I have people that assist me. But essentially, health and wellness with students, student safety, and anything else that really could assist the student. That's what we're all about in student services. We say that every day. How do we help our students? How do we assist them? So I'm the director of student services, and those are some of my responsibilities. Again, we manage a lot of people and lead a lot of people within student services. Go ahead. We do have 3 secretaries, Amber Pettyjohn, Gail West, and Kathy Miner. They are absolutely, positively essential to make our department run smoothly. If you call the school corporation, Amber Pettyjohn will answer the phone, and she will probably be the first person you talk to. But also with that, Gail and Kathy do a tremendous amount with all the records. If you've ever been in the gymnasium over here, you'll see the hundreds of thousands of records that we have dating all the way back to the early 1900s. Kurt Brenniger is here. Kurt, you want to wave? There he is. Kurt is our coordinator of safety and security. Kurt is a busy man, but he is in charge of all of our school safety and SBO programs, drills, and working with DCS or the law enforcement agencies in our area. But Kurt does a tremendous job. I don't know when the man sleeps. We're still trying to find that out, but he really truly leads us in safety and security and is trusted by our administrators. Elaine Miller, she could not be here with us tonight. She's our chair of nursing. Elaine, if you remember, last week left off on this story. She really was the tip of the spear for COVID. And she did a tremendous job leading us through that. And part of that task force, she just worked long hours through that pandemic, along with our task force and working with the health department. Just a tremendous individual. But now we're back to our regular health concerns. So we have 7,043 students with health concerns, and those health concerns have to be met every single day. Also does training for our health assistants, vision training, and any state reporting. But this is a busy job day to day, and she does a tremendous job, and so does her team, and 25 health assistants that we have. Abe Nasser and Karen Berger, they're both in the audience. Karen, wait, thank you. So they are part of our data team, and this is something new to our corporation and most corporations. Data is becoming extremely important. The state of Indiana has many data reports that we need to fill out every year, we need to complete every year. And there's something called the data exchange. I don't know if you've heard of the data exchange, but the data exchange is basically putting any information about a student that we may have into a system. And that takes a lot of time and energy from Abe and Karen. Coming up here in September, we have our Adm report. And that's our membership report. I'll just highlight that, and Karen spearheads that report. That is an intensive report. You're taking in all of our schools and trying to determine who is a member in our school corporation and who is not, and then all the data that is collected with that. It's tremendous, and it's every day. You're not just that day working on that report, you're working on that report 364 days until that day happens. With that said, data integrity is very important, and Abe just does a tremendous job with that. It's an everyday effort making sure all of the people inputting this data, and it's hundreds of people literally inputting data every day, that there's fidelity with that data when that goes into our system. And there are days that, some days that are very difficult, making sure that that data is correct. Some of that data goes to the federal government. We want to make sure that that data is absolutely, positively accurate. And we have to have people that not only maintain that, but can teach other people how to do it. And we're fortunate to have Karen and Abe both that are able to do those things. Go ahead. Let's go ahead and skip through that one. Go ahead and skip through that one, I'm sorry. So come up to Project Aware, and that's Dr. Kirk. Dr. Kirk, raise your hand. Dr. Kirk runs our Project Aware grant. You know, I talk about some of the things in that Project Aware grant, the school-based mental health services, prevention opportunities. She even worked on staff mental health and wellness care over last school year. Dr. Kirk always has new ideas, and she is an absolute data, she loves data. I can't say enough about it. As she comes up with these spreadsheets, I'm like, I wouldn't know how to do that, but so she holds a lot of our data too. But you know, you think about the youth mental health first aid, which is up there. That's teaching our students how to be more aware of the mental health of their friends. And that is so crucial at this juncture right now. Just a lot of students that are hurting with their mental health, and we want to be able to train our students to assist them as much as we can. One other thing that I'd like to highlight is the Stop It app. I think I talked about it the last time I was here, which is an anonymous reporting app that's on every single Chromebook in our school corporation. So if a student wants to report something, they can do so anonymously through that app. Dr. Kirk made that happen, along with lots of other things. So very appreciative of Dr. Kirk. Marie Callahan. There she is. Marie is our retention and at-risk specialist. Just some statistics up there about homeless, and this is a population, unfortunately, that's growing. And Marie not only assists with homelessness, but also does a tremendous job with attendance, school attendance. Marie goes out to homes every single day, helping our students get to school. And I don't think there's a day that goes by that she's not working on that. But also with the McKinney-Vento Act, and she's also our foster care liaison, just puts a tremendous amount of effort, but not only effort, but just care. She just wants to help our families and our students get over the hurdles that they may be dealing with. And we're very fortunate to have Marie in our midst. And then district school counseling coach, so there's two people here. I'll start with Michelle Tracy first. Michelle, there she is. Michelle has 1 foot in my office in student services and the other foot with Dr. Mason. She primarily does dual credit. And right now it's a huge endeavor in the school corporation to increase the amount of dual credit we offer and that students earn. And it is some heavy lifting there, I'll have to say, but Michelle is well on her way. She's only been with us for a little bit of time, but she just does an incredible job with that. But also, Michelle lends her expertise for being a school counselor in the high school arena to help assist us with questions we have. For those that don't know, high school counseling, the school counseling, the transcripting part of high school counseling is very complicated. It's not easy. Not everybody knows how to do that, how to read a transcript properly and make sure somebody is credentialed to move on to the next level. And so there are questions every day we have about transcripts or about high schools or pathways, and very fortunate to have Michelle with us to be able to answer that. Lori Sutliff. Lori is coming over from a middle school counseling role, and she is helping our counselors. She's our counseling coach. So she assists our counselors as they go through their day-to-day endeavors, trying to help our students, and she's just trying to augment their skills. That was part of the Lilly grant. The Lilly grant has ended. We still are spending some of that money down. I think that grant does not end for a couple of months officially, but then we have to move on to the next thing, just like with the strategic plan. And so Lori is working with our counselors to make sure they have what they need and position appropriately to help our students. And Lori is just going to be a tremendous asset for us. So, and there are some accomplishments there. So that is my team. If you give them a round of applause, I'd appreciate it. Any questions that you may have about that?
I have a question, but your team stick around so we can get a photo of your team and with you, I think, but.
I don't know if they'll want that, but yeah.
If we could get but Tom is exactly right when he talks about the need for that department, the challenges that department is facing, and some of those things that occur on a daily basis, from trying to identify the homeless students within our community, understanding that the student may be located in another district right now, but our need to still continue to provide services within our district. So we go out and provide transportation into, say, South Vermillion or into Sullivan County. So if you see our buses there, you know why. It's because this child has been located there, but we still have to provide those services. We think about the mental health pieces that our staff, our students are dealing with, and to see the work that student services does in that regard. But what drives us more than anything else is our data, and it will continue to be a driving force in the decisions that we're making. So just appreciate the entire work that student services does. So thank you, Tom.
Thank you. We have the Alice trainee, Dr. Tom Belatevich.
Well, here I am again. Superintendent Hayward, President Killian, members of the School Board of Trustees. School safety is the top priority for the Beagle County School Corporation. Over the past 25 years, our nation has unfortunately witnessed mass shootings throughout the country, specifically in our schools. This past school year, the horrific events in Uvalde, Texas, served as another reminder of the perpetual threat and heartbreaking tragedy. After each of these tragedies, our team reviews the facts of the events to determine what we do well and what can be done differently. Over the past 2 decades, the Beagle County School Corporation has invested heavily to ensure the safety of students and staff. We are one of the few school corporations in the state of Indiana that have a school protection officer in each school. We invest in training for our SPOs so they can be prepared for the worst case scenario, and just 2 weeks ago conducted a very rigorous training with the assistance of the experienced trainers at Top Guns. We have created safety plans and have matched that with vital technology to ensure that everyone is prepared and safe while on our campuses. Although we have taken extraordinary precautions and steps, we must continue to move forward in the realm of school safety. We need to continue to prepare our staff for the unfathomable possibility of an active shooter in one of our schools. At the end of last school year, and as a result of a meeting with local law enforcement, it was recommended that our staff be Alice trained. Specifically, Chief King, who's with us this evening, with the Terre Haute Police Department, gave a very impassioned plea to employ the Alice techniques for our staff. Chief Keen is here. So I wrote that in there. ALIS training is used in a variety of applications, primarily in schools, but also in business and industry. We sent 4 staff members to receive the necessary training to become official ALIS trainers. ALIS is an acronym. I'm not going to go into it in detail, but A stands for alert. That's your first sign of trouble. L, lockdown. I is to inform, which means to communicate in very plain language to those that are being affected. Counter, if the threat breaches, you are to counter the movement with distance and noise movement. And E, evacuate when safe to do. There is intensive training with our staff that accompanies this program. The training requires 2 hours of online training and 2 hours of in-person training. Tonight, Dr. Hayworth would like to discuss some options to complete this training in an expedited manner. Prior to turning it over to Dr. Hayworth, does the board have any questions for me or for Chief Keen?
How widely used is the ALIS program in the state of Indiana or in the Midwest?
It's growing tremendously. In fact, I believe it was Noblesville that had training there, and when they had an active shooter, the teacher employed his ALIS training to distract that active shooter, and that situation was able to be diffused very quickly. But I believe there's a listing on the website that shows all the schools. It is growing. I believe Jabalt uses ALIS training, and they have for some years.
I would just ask if the chief would like to maybe speak to it as well. As the chief's walking out, we greatly appreciate our relationship with the police department, with the county. I think sometimes it gets lost, and I'm very appreciative of the traditions of having the student protection officers in place prior to my arrival. But it's just not in the response. The city and the county also assist us in paying for those school protection officers. So Chief, thank you for that. And anything that you might say as the board hopefully moves forward with this recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing the input in this meeting. I'm very passionate about ALIS. Just to give you a little bit of background, I've been teaching it. I'm an instructor and have been for the last 4 years. This is outside my duties as chief. I've instructed at Jabal. There are 2 schools on the campus, approximately 200 employees there, and we train them annually. This is not for police or armed response. This is for teachers and employees, and that's what we teach at Jabal. I just wanted to address this briefly, as far as the police response. I can't explain what happened in Uvalde because there is no explanation for it. I can tell you that we do not train like that here, nor have we ever. We just don't do it. So as that goes, to the best of my knowledge, we've only experienced one what would be classified as active shooter in this area in the last 20 years, and that was in May of 2004. That occurred in our downtown. We had an individual who walked into a pawn shop, asked for a shotgun, shot the clerk, and proceeded outside where he fired into a passing vehicle by a woman who was just driving by. That day, I responded with another detective that just happened to be in the right place at the right time. We were about a block away. We encountered that individual just in between the what was the school corporation building and the old post office, and we were able to chase him down the street. Ultimately, we caught up to him at the corner of the old post office building, and just honestly, someone was looking out for us because he couldn't load another round into the shotgun because of the reach of jam. But that experience taught me a couple of things. First, that if the police engage an individual and stay on them, they can't harm other people. And that's exactly what his intent was that day. And I took a lot from that. And why I'm so passionate about ALIS is because having that experience, I can say this is probably the best program out there. ALIS is broken down into really, I don't want to go too deep into it, I want to give you just a brief summary so you understand why I'm so passionate about it. The first 2 parts, we talked about the acronyms, but we talked about the alert and the inform. The inform is probably the most important thing, and this is what traditionally schools have not schools, hospitals, bureaucratic organizations have not done a good job of conveying. Police department's the same, we have policies and we develop these things and we're so entrenched in them that we forget to use common language sometimes. So when we try to alert somebody that there's an active shooter and we say it's a code red or a code 999, that doesn't tell the average person anything. If I'm a visitor to your school, if I'm a parent who just came in and talked to a counselor, I don't understand what that means. So if you're not telling me in plain language where that person is, if they're a threat, it could cost someone their lives. And it doesn't give them any ability to get to the other part of what Alice teaches, which is the lockdown and the other methods that we talked about. The evacuate is the most important. I know that traditionally, as we go into those responses, schools, I went to school in this corporation from 1979, 1980 to 1993. So during that time, I can remember probably 100 tornado drills, fire drills, and they were all the same. Either the tornado drill, we got under our desks, shut the lights off. I'm still not sure why we ever did that, but we did it. And if it was a fire drill, the teacher, she would take us out and we would count off, so we had accountability. And those were great responses for those types of dangers. Unfortunately, they are not great responses when we start talking about an active shooter. And that's where I think Alice makes up for that. We've got to get away from that. So when I say evacuate is the best response, if I'm a teacher with my class in a hallway, and to my left is my classroom, and to my right is an exit door, typically what we're being taught across the United States is lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. My advice to you is tell all your students to run out the door and get as far away from the building as possible. So evacuate should be our primary concern. But it changes, and that's what Alice does. It gives you different options. So under that same circumstance, maybe there's not a door, and maybe I get into a lockdown situation. But lockdown shouldn't be my goal. Lockdown should just be, okay, that gives me time. Can I now get out the window and evacuate that way? And that's what really is different with Alice. It gives the teachers and your staff options. Like I said, the best response is going to be that the police come and they end it. But in that time, we know that a minute or more or less, people can lose their lives. So you have to give some tools to those people beyond just lockdown. And I think that's what Alice does. It empowers teachers, staff, it gives them other options that are available to them. I'm not going to go into all because I spent 2 hours teaching this, so this is not. But I just want you to get a feel for why this is going to be different than what typically you've experienced in the past, but why I think it's so much more important. We have to learn and we have to get better, and that's all of us. And I think this is a better method of doing it. It's taught all across the country. But again, I think this is probably the best thing out there, and I think it's probably worth it to invest in this, invest in it for your staff and for the students. And I say that not just the police chief, but also as a parent of a student in the school corporation. So, sorry I talked a little longer than I planned, but I'm passionate about this. I think this is a very important benefit, and I think it would benefit everyone. So if there's any specific questions to me, I'll answer them now. Otherwise, I'd probably talk long enough.
I don't have a question, but I appreciate the passion, and it's like for those that are sitting here, also, you have to have the passion for security of the kids. I believe it was in the 1970s that we first had liaison officers in the building. I know they were there in the 80s, and no arms, no uniform, just there in street clothes to talk to the kids, because students do come to the officers and tell their life story sometimes, which is good, which is great. And then it's progressed to the point of today that we have a police officer at every school, and we have secure entrances to every school. And going along with the Alice program, there's just constant training, and unfortunately, it's become very necessary in the world we live in. So, thank you for that, and for the training that I'm sure is intense, and we'll be ready. Hopefully that scenario won't happen, but it's happened other places. So, but anyway, thanks.
Thank you.
I have a question, if you don't mind. So one of the things, I have 2 children in the school corporation as well. So this is on my mind constantly. And thank you for being here tonight. But the officers that we have, they are armed, correct?
Yes.
And they are empowered and equipped to assess and deal with threats as they happen as well, right? I mean, do they have, so I guess what I'm getting at is their training, they're going through Alice as well and supplemented by whatever their training is as a proper law enforcement officer. How does that work for them?
Okay, Alice is not for armed, it's not an armed response. It is strictly for employees.
But so it's not for law enforcement, they don't get that training?
They have separate training because they deal with a suspect
Right.
through armed measures. They're going to go to that person and they're going to stop them from hurting people.
Right.
And whatever that takes. Alice is strictly for employees. There is some trauma-informed portions of it where you can look to identify that people have past traumas. It's age appropriate. So when I talk about responses or counters in a classroom, it's not, Alice doesn't teach or counters for K through 5 because it's not appropriate. They're too young, they're too small. But when you get into 6th, 7th, 8th grade, or even the high school level, then what a counter would be, okay, we barricaded ourselves in a room. Maybe we don't have windows to escape. So maybe now this person's getting in. What do we do now? We have no other options then. What Alice teaches is counter. We don't huddle together in a room. We don't make ourselves a single target. We spread out in that room, and the teacher then guides them. Pick up anything heavy that you have, and you use it. And unfortunately, without that, and if you're in a lockdown situation, and like I said, even a minute response, you can find yourself in that. You have to have other options. And that's what that provides. But it's also age informed, like I said, as we teach it, it's different age levels as far as the teacher, what they can expect to help with that, or set out in the training.
But definitely something that's gonna facilitate that officer being able to be effective if there is an active threat, right? The Alice training would be helpful for that officer who's there.
Yeah, so I don't want to confuse the issues, but officers are trained to go to, if I go into a building, all my officers are trained, if they hear a shot, they're going to that shot, and they're going to stop that person. This is for them. For the employees,
No, I understand that. I'm just saying that if they are working in a building where they know the staff is trained, that's a better scenario. than what we
Absolutely,
have right now.
absolutely.
That was my point.
I hope that we never need it, and the chances are with the school corporation, like we said, we have an officer in every school, you have an armed response. But why not make sure that we give the teachers every affordability to make sure they're safe as well and the students are safe? That's all this is.
Yeah.
It's just another layer of protection added on to what we already have, so, yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be confusing
No,
about
I'm
the
sorry,
math.
I misunderstood what you're saying.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hearing from the chief and hearing from Dr. Balatevich, I would like to enact this training as quickly as possible. We do know it's a 4-hour training. So I'm recommending adding a 2-hour delay to our school schedule in the month of September. Specifically, I would like to work with the VCTA and our other employment groups to find that date that works, as well as communicating that in a timely fashion to our community and to our parents. So the 2-hour delay for students would be occurring while simultaneously we would be providing teachers and staff with 2 hours of uninterrupted Alice training so that we can move this faster than allowing for multiple months to do it over several teacher meetings. So I'm making that recommendation. What that would be is you're giving me permission, once we identify that date, to communicate that date out to our parents, to our community, and in working with our teacher groups.
That's just a single date.
Correct.
So I'd like to make a motion to accept, the plan to have Alice training as a 2-hour delay in the month of September to be be announced at a later date.
I second that.
We have a motion to approve a 2-hour delay in September for Alex training for our teachers and staff in a second. Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
I have spent a lot of time reading about school safety issues and the shooting, the horrible tragedies that have happened, and I'm not doing what Dr. Balasevich's team is doing, but I'm just a parent looking for what went wrong. And over again, I just, there's this pattern where there isn't collaboration between people who are working in the schools, and there's not a free flow of information, and there isn't an armed SPO on duty. And I look at what we're doing, and we do have those things. We do have collaboration, we do have a flow of information, and we do have those armed officers who are enabled to take action against these threats. And to be honest with you, that helps me sleep at night. So I'm extremely grateful for the foresight and the investigations that we do and for this training, and I say we can't get it done soon enough.
We have a motion and a second to approve the 2-hour delay in September. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and abstain.
Board, thank you, Chief, thank you. Balasevic, thank you.
Next on the agenda is approval of Neola board policies.
Madam President, members of the board, on behalf of the Policy Committee, I am recommending the approval of the 2022 Beagle County School Corporation Policy Book. This recommendation comes after several months of working with the Policy Committee, working with our school attorneys, and working with Neola. And if you recall, Neola is a contracted service. They work with many school corporations across the Midwest in helping them develop policies. And so as we move forward, if the board takes a positive action, our work is not done. Really, this just creates a baseline for us to have updated policies to meet some of the challenges that we've just been talking about. So what would that look like? It would look like every month the Policy Committee would be reporting out as a part of the board agenda. I'm thinking it would be the second meeting of the month. And would be doing two things. It would be recognizing that there may need to be an adoption of policy, which would mean that there would be 2 more readings of policy before it would be formally approved. Or it would just simply be discussing the policies that they are working with in Policy Committee. But it would be an active part of our agenda moving forward. With approval tonight, if that is granted, the policy book would go live tomorrow morning. Would be an extension of the board page on our website, and would be a click to where you could see the policies. So recommending approval of the 2022 Beagle County School Corporation policy book.
I move approval of the 2022 board policy book.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the 2022 policy book. Are there any public comments? Normally at this time, if you have a public comment, we'd like for you to sign up with Catherine out in our hallway, and I have a slip of paper and to call you up, and that's also to address any questions you may have, and we can reach back out to you. We do not have that at this time. So are there any public, or are there any discussion or questions from the board?
As a member of the Policy Committee, this represents a tremendous amount of work. Not only, thankful for Neola's templates that we can work off of, but a lot done to make sure it's what we have is the right thing for Beagle County. And to me, this is one of the most important jobs that we have as a board, is making sure we get this stuff right. So
And the wording is difficult sometimes.
Definitely.
Well, thank you to the work of our policy committee. At this time, we have a motion and a second to approve the 2022 board policy book. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and abstain. Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
Next on the agenda is comments, correspondence, and information call for citizens' comments. I do have one, Dr. Michael Harding from the Friends of Ray Park to talk about the Ray Park 100-year celebration and the first e-training.
Dr. Hayworth, I'm happy to be here because we're finally going to have a public announcement about the plans for Ray Park. It's only been 8 years getting it done. But I want to invite other board members. I was an assistant superintendent for instruction for about 16 years, and a high school principal. I did a lot of things very much related to what you guys are doing in a smaller school district in Pike County, just to the west of Jasper. And I know about French Lick, and I was in a smaller district. Every year we used to try to rank school districts. There was 24 of them in southwest Indiana. And we would put down their free and reduced lunch rate, the poverty rate. We would put down their grad rate. We would put down their ISTEP pass rate. There's a relationship between health and poverty and academic achievement. We want to turn the Ray Park complex into a health plex as lifelong sports. There's about 45 acres across from South High School that are laying empty year after year after year. As a school person, I just want to tell you, I don't think that schools can do it on their own. They've got to have the help of county and city governments. And tomorrow we're going to have the city and the Parks Department, and we're going to get serious about telling the public about the plan for a health plex at Ray Park. That's going to have biking, walking, running, golf, tennis, pickleball, and you all know about the historic building that sits there. It's 100 years old. It will be 100 years in 2025. I'm not 100% sure we're going to redo it, but I'm 99% sure we are. We've raised some money. Friends of Ray Park and the city is going to help out. They have some money to do that. That would be, and you know, anything that has to do with sports. A big part of being sports is friends and social relationships. So I'm here to invite you to the Ray Park celebration, 100 celebration. I've talked to Joni and Jackie and Dr. Hayworth about the plans there. Everybody needs to know what those plans are. Because if we're going to raise our graduation rate in Terre Haute, if we're going to be competitive with others around us, we're going to have good health. And it's going to be pretty tough. You need help. And this is, I think it's a really big boom to the south side of Terre Haute. I do think someday you'll have a new Terre Haute South High School. Most school districts, Dr. Hayworth, have renovated their facilities in southwest Indiana, and I think that's going to happen here too. With the new South High, with the renovated Ray Park, focused on health, I think that we can really start to move our town forward. Same thing with downtown, the east side with the casino and the north side. I see Terre Haute kind of rising out of the ashes. That's from someone who grew up here and spent 35 years in Evansville. I've seen their growth, and I think it can happen here. So I want to invite all the board members to our celebration, and then maybe sometime we can really talk about that plan across the street that'll help South High School, Sarah Scott, Fuquay, you know what their free and reduced lunch counts are. Honey Creek, all these schools on the south side, parents, because there is a part of that plan to have part of Ray Park be a public park, a park within a park, with a splash pad and that type of thing. So we'd like to see you there tomorrow night. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to applaud your efforts because I know you are the leader on this plan, and it's taken a lot of energy and determination and dedication, and I think that's great.
Thank you, Jackie.
Next, we have information from Superintendent Hayworth and board members.
So, thank you, Tom, for the presentation, for the goal for student support. Next month, we'll be turning our attention to the business department. We will begin the process of getting ready to advertise for a budget, but we will also use that time to highlight resource management and to speak to the work of the business department. So that will be coming next month, as well as welcoming our students back to our board meetings, in which we will begin to introduce student presentations once again back to our board meetings. So a lot to look forward to in September.
I'll be anxious to see the students
Yeah, me too.
making presentations here. We need,
In their absence tonight, can we just take a minute to celebrate the first day of school went off well? We've gotten through a couple weeks. I can just tell you, I've got, I said I have the two, and one of them was a kindergartner. So my baby is in the school system and he's thriving, both my kids are. We've got games going, color guard twirling. It's a wonderful thing. And I was walking through the open house at my son's elementary school, and I was looking at all the families coming through, and they were handing out, please sign up for, this is a Title I school, sign up for this, it's also an A school, okay? And I was looking around, I was in the media center, and I thought, look at all these wonderful books these kids have. Our public schools are a wonderful thing, and we gotta celebrate that and take a minute and all the heavy stuff to remember we're doing, providing some wonderful things for kids here. So I just needed to say that.
I want to give praise to Beagle County Public Library. I was at several of the open houses too. The library was set up, giving the kids free books, fabulous choices for all age group. Our library knocks it out of the park every time, and I just want to make sure they know how much we appreciate it.
I just want to take a moment to thank all the VCSC high school students who are in the process of planning the Blue Out for Wednesday. That the ISU community appreciates that gesture immensely in a hard way for us.
Are there any committee reports from board members? Just on that note, Dr. Powers, my heart goes out to your community and families affected. And no matter what, the community, heard several times, our community gives and cares, and ISU's our family too. On that note, our future meeting is Monday, September 12th, 6 p.m. here. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.